Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Wednesday. After a long week of not working every day, it's hard to get used to this again. Anyway, tonight our guest is Dr. Knight, Dr. Andrew Knight out of Florida. Waiting for him to show up and join us. Yeah. So things going on. Friend of mine, two friends of mine are making a movie, WW2, that I can actually show you the preview for. Here we go. Interesting. So I'm going to share my screen. And people on the radio cannot see my screen, but you can imagine. Use your imagination, right? So we're going to share. Here we go. God's Armor. Here we go. We're going to share this, and we are there now, and we are going to play this clip for you.
My commander is dead. The crew's dead also.
Then freezing boys, let me in!
22 of us were captured, then gunned down by the bear mob.
A Nazi.
A Nazi?
A Nazi. I'd be ashamed to be afraid to die at my age after what they gave to their countries, Jenkins. I'd be humiliated. Be ashamed.
Behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha.
God has a plan, but each man chooses his own destiny within that plan.
With respect, Colonel, sir, Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
Very well then, Jenkins, the Bible. Ecclesiastes 3:8. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace.
I guess war really is a complicated subject when you get right down to it, isn't it, Colonel Faraday, sir?
Beautiful, huh? Very interesting. It looks like my guest is here. I'm going to go back, stop sharing. Here we go. Now we're back in the studio, everybody. My guest, Dr. Knight, has arrived, so we're going to say hello to him.
Hello there.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Great. I love your Air Force shirt. That's awesome.
I got two of them at Air Force. I got them at Patrick Space Force Base.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So
Everything's good.
I sent you the files and everything, and we'll talk about that later, but welcome to the program. Tell us what's going on. Let me tell you something. I'm going to read the bio on this movie real quick before you talk. Is that all right?
Sure.
Because this is very interesting. Let me go back here. So it's not really the bio, it's a synopsis. During the blizzards in 1944 in northern Germany, during the Battle of the Bulge, the lone tank driver whose crew has been killed meets up with two soldiers from different armies. A tough British colonel, you know how tough they are, with two soldiers. Okay, may or may not be rational or seeming American soldier who may or may not be a Nazi. His Christian values demand that Tanker share the only shelter from the blistering, because it's snow. The whole background is snow and it's freezing and people are dying. Deadly cold, this tank. But who can be trusted? And thus begins a sometimes harrowing psychological drama thriller during Christmas Eve into Christmas Day, steeped in faith-based themes and scripture. So that's that for the movie, and I think it's very interesting. I like the two elements of it. It's military. It's about religion, Christianity in particular, and I think it'd be a really wide audience. But the thing about it is to get the word out. It's almost finished, and it's coming soon, and it's in 3D.
Who's producing it?
David Rosler. He's done a lot of East Coast things and Hollywood in the past. He's done a lot of movies. He's like a movie connoisseur. Yeah, that's what the gist is of that, and I think this would be a really good lesson. And and it's 3D. That's the thing. You don't see 3D movies too much. Now they have 4D, where they, like in the snow, they actually put snow on you in the theater.
Is that right? Oh, that's
Yes.
funny.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And you feel the wind and all kinds of things, that everything that happens in the movie.
Oh, that is too funny.
So it's fascinating because I had him on my show last week, and he was telling me about how he can he had to do some research and get inside the tanks and how really small they were and the history behind it, and how people actually died in the tanks, freeze to death. Yeah. And not from any war damage, or just the fact that they were in that tank. And let me see.
I think there's an element to this movie. It almost sounds like the Donner Party. Have you?
Right. There probably is. It's a survival thing. War, like I say, you don't want to be in a war anyway. So war is terrible.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, I pulled up both of my books that deal with suffering, evil, and suffering. And I was just thinking, just when I reviewed this trailer, that war is probably the closest thing to hell. And that would be the obvious assessment. But I would also say that it's also probably the most real way for us to understand the omnipotence of God.
Right.
Because, like, for instance, if you watched the D-Day memorial service in France a few weeks ago, celebrating 80 years since D-Day, and so many people died then and then thereafter from their injuries on that June 6th. And who would have gotten off that ship thinking they would be still alive 80 years later? Who would have raised their hand and said, "Don't worry, I got this. I'll get through this battle and I'll dodge all the bullets and I'll be alive to tell about it 80 years later"? Nobody in their right mind getting off those boats, hitting that beachhead would have ever wagered a bet that they would be around to live and tell about it 80 years later.
You're right. 2 weeks ago, I went to we were honoring at Wright-Patterson at the museum, WW2 in Vietnam. We welcomed the Vietnam guys back. And the WW2 guys, they're in their late 90s and hundreds. And the stuff they went through back then, I mean, they were in Battle of the Bulge and all those places. but they're back here now. And they lived to tell about it. We had like 5 people being honored. One of them died like a week before the event. But their stories are amazing. They didn't have reservations. They just did what they had to do. People were different back then. They were all in.
Oh, they were all boy. They were all boy.
Yeah, right.
And you watch them now. I just so much enjoy watching these older men. There's no pretense with them. They're just rock solid people, you know?
Yeah. So my dad's uncle, my great uncle, was in the war too, over in France, as an African American, and the French people were told that black men had tails. Wait, this is honest, okay? He told me this story, and they went to shower. So black men don't have tails after all. That's what they were told. That was going around in France. That's so kind of funny. Interesting, right?
Awful.
But all Americans, doesn't matter what color they were, that fought in that war were patriots. Yeah. They did it for the right reasons, and a lot of heroes came out of that. There's some crazy things people went through, and I can't imagine. And they knew they were going to die on Omaha Beach. They knew it. A lot of them knew they were going to die fighting those wars.
My dad was born in 1940, and he would talk about having paper drives and rubber drives and metal, tin drives. They were scrounging up materials everywhere they could, and citizens everywhere were chipping in. Everybody was involved in the war. It wasn't just those in uniform. Everybody, took the whole country,
Yeah, it was an industrial effort, with the, GM, all these companies are making things, and aircraft, and Rosie the Riveters. And they had WAFs there too, and women of the Air Force and different branches. They were around, and families. I can't imagine that. You don't even. I mean, how many months were they gone? This had to be. I don't know how many years they spent a whole year over there or what, but in those.
I think
the worst conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched a documentary just a few weeks ago. I'm trying to think now. This was I don't think they were P-51s, but they were in that era. Mm-hmm. And so when they went overseas, they had to. Their tour would be complete as soon as they completed 25 missions. That was their. We might call them sorties.
Yeah.
You'd have to do 25 missions, and however long that took, if it took a month or 5 months or 6 months, 8 months, I think it was about 8 months it took them. And how challenging it was to get parts for these planes, and the mechanics were like working round the clock just to keep these planes in the air. And the ones that got shot down, the ones that survived, and one of the guys they were highlighting in particular, he was a Marine, and then he got kicked out of the Marines. He went in the Army, and then he got recruited back to the Marines. But he was a pilot wherever he was. And he was just the things this guy did. I mean, like beating up his commanding officer, and then leaving the military so as not to get prosecuted, and then going back in another branch of service. Never happened today.
Right.
And he always told his men, if you don't see me after the war, just look for me in a bar in San Diego. You'll find me in a bar in San Diego. I mean, this guy was just scrappy. And anyhow, his aircraft and his being a pilot shot down. I'm trying to figure out how many others he shot down. I think it was somewhere in the teens, but it was a record. I think it was the top one,
Oh,
but you know, when you go up and you're in dogfights, you don't know how you have no idea how that's gonna end.
exactly.
just-
Yeah.
And the only way you know your fellow airmen or survive or not, or have a chance at survival, if you see those parachutes. If those parachutes don't pop, you know your friends are gone. And they watched one after another get shot down or bail out, or their parachutes didn't open or whatever. So
Yeah, one of the guys was talking about that. That's the sad thing. You know, we knew he was gone because there's no parachute. He actually mentioned that very thing. He was a crew member. And I have a friend, he's on Facebook, Wayne Smith. I met him once. He was a Vietnam pilot. He flew like 80 missions in Vietnam, 80 sorties, and he got shot down on the last one and went to the Hanoi Hilton, 5 years. And it's just, those are probably the worst wars we're mentioning right now. It's like Vietnam, WW2. So those are pretty extreme. They don't do dogfighting much anymore. So
no.
So Top Gun's not reality.
What's interesting about the older generations, first of all, my grandpa, he lied about his age to get into World War I when he was 17 in 1970. Okay, which a lot of young men did, and then, which I didn't know. He lived to be 98 years young, though, almost 99. And what I didn't know until after my uncle died, that he was in the Navy also. My grandpa was in the Navy. My grandpa he was stationed in New York City, and he's from Iowa originally. And he heard Billy Sunday was going to be preaching, and he says, well, the man's from Iowa. I'll go see what he has to say. And he got saved in 1917 at a rally in New York City. It was a 14-week evangelistic rally. And he shows up, and, you know, who knows, he was maybe in his Navy whites or something like that, walking around the city, and stumbles into a revival meeting and comes to Christ. And then my uncle, that he knew the Lord also, my uncle was in I'm trying to think which war it was now. I think he was in World War II, and then he went back in the Korean War, and never talked about it. He just died a couple of years ago, and he never talked about. My aunt told me, or my cousin told me about it. They were both, my grandpa and my uncle served in the Navy, and I never knew one. Now, my grandpa told me stories. He told me stories that it'd take 4 men to hold him down. He'd be fighting and wrestling and fighting in the bars and stuff. he'd pretend like when he's just telling me stories, and I was like 5 years old, and he'd say, it'd take four men to hold me back, because I'd be knocking them out one after the other, just saying stuff. He was, he was a wild.
Yeah.
It's a good thing he got saved, because he would have been in. Anyhow.
Yeah, some people don't talk about it.
Yeah, my uncle never talked about it, but he went to war twice, World War II, and then he went back to the Korean War. Talk about giving yourself for your country.
Yeah, do you realize that the WW2 was over only 20 years before we were born?
Korea was?
No, WW2.
Oh, 20 years before we were born?
Or it ended in 45. I was born in 65.
Yeah.
It's not that far back. So
No, it's true.
I never
It's
thought
true.
it was like, wait a minute.
That's
Yeah.
why I mentioned my dad was born 1940, and he talked about having paper drives and rubber drives and all these different raw materials that citizens were asked to basically donate for the war effort. That was, and you hear about it on older broadcasts too, that everybody, or even like It's a Wonderful Life, they'll talk about everything was about the war effort. Everybody was pulling together as a country, not just the military, but everybody.
The
You
war
know, the whole,
drive, yeah, all communities, everybody, the kids are in on it. It was all about that
Mhm.
effort. And it'd be great to see that today, that kind of thing going on today.
yeah.
But it didn't happen during the Gulf War or anything like that. We just saw people. What are one of my commanders in Ohio was shot down in Gulf War, and they have him on CNN. They have tapes of him on CNN being captured. F-16 pilot,
Oh, yeah.
and he's got scars on his face and things like that. But it is interesting. I mean, combat proven people. You had a lot of those when you were in the Air Force. Where you were, and you
Well,
had a lot of
my neighbor across the street was in. He was like a SEAL Team 6 of the Air Force. I don't know what exactly it was, but they
Air
put
rescue.
probably he
rescue?
was.
Yeah.
It may have been they put $500,000 of training into him. He saw live action, put it that way.
Yeah,
And
right.
he's got PTSD. He can't even be around civilization during the 4th of July. He has to go up
Oh,
somewhere in, camping out somewhere where there's no people because he'll totally freak out. But he
wow.
was he retired. He didn't retire, but he's a staff sergeant. And then I have another neighbor next to him that was in Vietnam. He's 80 years young. I told him how to get rated. He just went down, got 100% rating. And then I went back and told him, now you got to go give your certificate, your award letter to the county, and they'll take your house off the tax rolls. He goes, okay. So he did that too.
No way. Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Wow. That's
He
good.
didn't
That's
even
good.
tell me he didn't even tell me he got 100% rating. He didn't even tell me. So
Yeah.
I told him which is fine, but
I know how
but
you feel.
he's yeah. Well, and then my other neighbor up the street, 2 houses down, he's retired Army, and he last 2 or 3 years, 2 years in, he was a contractor. What do they do? Like they do all that counting of supplies. What do I forget what they call it? Like audit, an
Okay.
audit
Yeah.
guy. And he said he worked 12 hours, 7 days a week for 2 years over there. Yeah.
Wow.
And he's 65 or 66, somewhere in that range. But he did 25 years in the Army. So, and then my next door neighbor was Navy, retired Navy. So, a lot of military on the street, a lot of iron too.
Speaking of 1940s, so a friend of mine, he was my mentor, my Air Force mentor. We worked together. He taught me more than everybody put together. And this guy joined the Navy right after WW2. And he was a very smart guy. He knew how to do the job, and he taught me a lot. But this guy, he died in like 2010. But this guy had it together. He taught the philosophy. This guy was like a pimp. We go on TDYs, and he rent this gigantic Lincoln town car every time. Like during the physical fit test, the walk part, he would have a cigarette and a beer while he did the walk. That tells you the walk test is useless, right? He would do that. Wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
Part-time alcoholic, but he knew his stuff. He was that good. He was the next Popeye. But you got heroes. You got heroes out there for real.
Mhm.
Very
Mhm.
patriotic. Got to
Yeah.
work with a bunch of them. And the SEALs, I've met SEALs, and those guys are incredible. Incredible.
So I see him. I see him every day on LinkedIn. I
Mhm.
see one couple that's the guy's he's probably only 38 years old. He's got 20 years in the Air Force. He went in and enlisted and then got commissioned because you can see his bio. Of course, you see he got an AA from the Air Force,
Yeah.
and then he got his bachelor's in avionics from Embry-Riddle, which is right up
Right.
here in Daytona Beach. And then he
Right.
went back and got his master's there. So, well, here he is, a young, what I would call a young major, probably about 38, and his wife's a captain. And there's a picture of them. And they're both, it looks like they're both teaching in Montgomery
Mhm.
at the what do you call it? The War College in Montgomery.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of people go down there. Yeah.
But I mean, there's just great people. You see them. I see them all the time on my LinkedIn. You look on my LinkedIn. I don't know if you're
I
on
was
my.
there today.
Oh, you
I went
were.
there today. Check it out. Yeah, you're right. There's so many good people, and there's some of the young people are like that now, and there's a lot of patriotic people. We have where I work a lot of people from the academy as well, but I like the people who hit the ground, the people who do, boots on the ground kind of Air Force people, or on the flight line or back shops. Those are the kind of people, they got to get it done every day. You can't
Well,
fake anything.
I'll tell you what's interesting. I went up to the VA. I think it was Monday, and I had to get some lab work done and a couple other items I had to take care of there. And then I do errands on my way back in Port Orange, and I get gas at BJ's. And I said, I was still thinking about going to that. Maybe it was Monday. Tuesday, I was thinking about going to that rally in Doral.
Mhm.
And I wasn't sure I wanted to drive down there. It's almost 4 hours. Probably 4 hours with any stops and each way. And I said, I wonder if I could get a half a dozen guys together and rent a plane to go down there. So I drove a different way home. I went down to Route 1 and went to the airport in Daytona, or in New Smyrna Beach rather. And I went in there and I talked to the gal, and she priced it out. It'd be about $5,000, about $850 a piece for 6 guys. Of course, there wasn't enough time to pull that many
Yeah.
people together. I called a couple people in the RNC town committee, and I couldn't get anything. And the mayor, I talked to the youngest mayor in the country, is right the next town south of me in Edgewater. He's
Oh,
only,
really?
he's about 20 years old. He's actually a student at Daytona State College.
Oh,
And
right.
he got VIP seats down there. So I said, well, it doesn't look like we're gonna really be able to connect down there because, anyhow, that's the way that. So anyhow, but hey, look, I would $5,000 to take a trip down the state and back, or if you had 6 people, it'd only be like $850. I would
That's
I would
still a lot.
spring for that.
That's still a lot of
Huh?
money, but it would be fun. That would be fun.
It is a lot. It is a lot, but you wouldn't forget it, and you'd have a great time.
I went to one in 16. So
You
it
what?
was
You rented 116?
no, I went to a rally.
A rally?
Yeah, and
I didn't make it, but of course I watched it last night and
yeah.
something else.
Yeah, it was interesting because they put all the veterans right behind the president. And
Oh,
you're
they
like,
did?
you're really close. Yes.
Is that
That's what
right?
Yeah, that's what they did to the one I went to. So
I really
was
wanted
like-
to go. I love it down there.
yeah.
I love it down there. Wish the Lord would move me down there. I'm so jealous of.
Hey, I say the
Oh,
same thing about your area.
Well, come on down, brother.
Someday.
Come
probably.
on down.
Yeah, I might
So-
have to go.
Incidentally, so because I went a different direction to get back to New Smyrna Beach, I passed this church and I said, oh, the grass is kind of long there. I wonder maybe they're going to sell the building or something. So I looked up the church and I called the pastor. It was a Episcopal church. Of course, I didn't want to say, hey, you guys going out of business? That's like kind of crazy. So I said, well, I'm a church planner. I'm kind of looking for a space to rent. That was kind of a softball way of asking, and kind of what's going on there. They may actually end up going out of business. They may end up selling the building. It's right next to a high school.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go to their service on Sunday. They wanted my doctoral statement, so I sent that to them last night. And so if things work out, I'm going to probably plan on launching a church there on Easter Sunday next year,
Oh,
next April
That's
20th.
so cool. Yeah, I would love to come down there and visit. That would be cool. Yeah.
Come
You got
on down, brother.
Any excuse to go to Florida. Yeah.
You and your wife can stay. You and wife can stay here. You have separate private guest room with a private bath, full bath, right
Oh,
off
wow.
the.
Yes.
Very private, opposite side of where I live.
Mhm. Wow. Yeah.
So
That I love Florida. People say it's too hot, but I don't think so. I like
No,
it. I like it hot like that.
no, it's not too hot. Nope,
No.
they don't know what they're talking about. No, the
It's
problem
nice.
is your body's not used to it. It takes a good year for your body to get used to that, and your blood thins out, and then you feel very different. It's just very different. Your body adjusts. It's the way it is. And if you were to go to Antarctica and you weren't well prepared for the cold, your
That's not
body
gonna
would be a shock, right? So why would you think you're going to go from New England or the upper Midwest to Florida and not have an effect on your body?
I'm going to
So-
say I would not, because I went down there TDY a lot, and I went overseas, and I've been to hotter places. I'm kind of used to being a chameleon, so I know what to expect. Arizona, we
Yeah.
go out there. Yeah, I lived in the Philippines 3 years, so
Oh, you did?
that was really hot. That was like, it was like an
Where?
oven opened up.
Manila?
Clark Air Base, which is
Oh,
about
really?
an hour or so from Manila. Yeah, I've been to Manila a few times. We went there for field trips, but nothing was hotter than Africa.
Is that right?
In Djibouti, it was right on the Red Sea. We could see the Red Sea from work.
Is that right?
Yeah, and yeah,
Would that be
was pretty-
would that be the east side of the peninsula?
yes, East Coast.
Southeast or what part of Africa? Was it like by
it's
Kenya?
like the Horn of Africa.
The Horn
yeah,
is
it's-
West Africa, isn't it?
Just north. No, it's east. No, it's just
Oh,
north of. Let's see. What's that? Okay, where there's no food, right? What is that? They used to talk about this on commercials a lot. Sally Struthers. What was that country? Ethiopia.
Ethiopia.
And they were getting all their food from Ethiopia. That's how
Oh, they
bad it
were?
was in Djibouti. Yeah, and then there's people with no shoes. Some people are walking around with no clothes on at all. Reports, and there's poverty everywhere. But the biggest employer was a Navy base. But it was fascinating because all kinds of.
And you lived
crazy
on the
animals.
Navy base?
Yeah, we were on a Navy base. And actually, probably don't know this. I played bass at the Navy Chapel while I was there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had to sight read music. So
And,
That was-
and How do you like Clark Air Base? How was that to be? Was that a nice base?
Yes, it was really nice. It wasn't as hot as Africa, but it was hot enough. When you first get there, it's like you walk into an oven when you get off the plane. That's what it feels like. Yeah, it was cool. You got to see a lot of WW2 sites, like the Bataan Death March is there. Japanese occupied that island, or one of the islands, and a lot of history. There's a lot of old 1940s vehicles there, Jeeps, and some of those Jeeps are what people are using to transport people around town. You know, they're taxis now. And my dad bought a 47 Ford over there for $500.
Oh yeah.
So very interesting. A lot of things. So we're Americans in another country. It's a whole nother dynamic there. So we played baseball. We practiced. I played baseball the whole time. We practiced on the field, on the parade field, and then the Philippine national anthem would come on after our anthem. So as soon as the American anthem goes away, we start playing again because we don't. It's not our country. We don't respect another country's flag. So they taught us that from a really young age. So when the Philippine anthem came on, you continued to play or to practice. But so it's kind of, so you get to, all the anthems, where things are, the culture and the food and everything. And I think that was a great experience. One of the better experiences that most people don't get to do as a military brat.
Were you ever stationed at Clark when you were growing up?
Yeah, my dad was. Yeah.
Your dad was, but not you.
No.
You were kind of separated from your dad at one point?
No, only when he went to Vietnam.
Okay.
And I didn't know where he was. I didn't know. I was like, where's Daddy? Where's Daddy? And we were living somewhere else back in Ohio, but we all we were over there overseas. And it was really cool. I met a lot of friends. I still have friends today from there.
So you wanted to know what was going on with me?
Yes, what's going on with you? I know you're in school.
As of Friday, I completed my 8th course in my PhD in applied apologetics, and we had 19 in the cohort. Up until Friday, they were diminishing for the last year and 15 months or so.
Yeah.
Since the second course, people were dropping. Well, we had 2 left besides myself until Friday, and those 2 dropped off Friday. So now I'm in the 9th course, and I don't have a professor anymore. I have a tutor.
What? I bet you're.
That's kind of a joke, but I don't have. I mean, I'm the only student in the class. So what do you call that? I have a tutor. I don't have a professor.
Teacher's pet.
Well, I'm like Joe Biden. I'm at the top of my class.
Right. Well, I don't know what.
Sorry, I didn't mean to corrupt your tape, but
no, you're good. Yeah, rumor is he was not, but it's just another story.
But I always say the people in my class were geniuses, and they didn't quit because they weren't bright students. Mm-hmm. I think they quit. One of them was, to tell you how bright they are or were, one was a medical doctor at Johns Hopkins and had an MDiv and a DMin already. This would have been his 3rd doctoral degree. Well, you just do the math. He had one too many surgeries on the calendar, and he couldn't keep up with it. He couldn't do it. It wasn't because he wasn't bright, wasn't a committed Christian. And then another student, whose first name was Paul, is a missionary. He had 2 masters and a doctorate of ministry already, and he was fluent in both biblical languages and 5 other languages. Okay, tell me I wasn't surrounded by brilliant people.
That is brilliant. That's amazing.
See,
That's amazing.
and I joke and say, I can stay in this PhD all I want. My wife doesn't care. I
Yeah,
spend all the time I want on it because my wife doesn't complain about anything.
I don't think she does. I think she understands. Uh,
She never. I never hear a word from her. She doesn't. Not a peep. Not a complaint or gripe. Nothing.
well, you're the
So
luckiest husband in the world.
what's that?
You're the luckiest husband in the world then.
That's right. That's right. My wife is so quiet and but so we have this opportunity about the church launching next. That's what immediate comes to mind is to start on Easter Sunday, and there's no sense rushing into it. But you want to do it right. But I'm going to purchase all the emails of all the residents. You can buy them by zip code. Okay, so
Really?
I can get the first 4 towns in my immediate area about 153,000 emails for about $1,400, and that includes apartments. And that's one thing churches don't do a good job of reaching single people in apartments. But I will make sure that we have we have an aggressive outreach to apartment dwellers. I'll tell you what, if you come to Daytona, I'll show you within 1 mile, you'll see brand new apartments that went up, totaling over 30,000 units, all filled up as soon as they got the CO, they were filled.
Really?
Yes, sir.
So let me ask
I'll
you a
show them to
question.
you. Yeah.
Okay. How much did you say that costs? Can you explain that a little bit? What you're going to do to reach?
Well, okay. I have 2 different email companies in Florida that sell emails and by different criteria. And one of them sells them per zip code, and one or both of them sell them by single family homes and by there's 3 criteria: a single family, apartments, and new move-ins. So I'll get all categories possible. Eventually I'm going to get about 6 or 7 towns around, which will total about 350,000 emails. And so we'll set up another server that's out of your town, by the way, in Dayton.
Really?
My web guy's in Dayton. Right now we're sending out about 10,000 emails a day promoting my Institute for Biblical Apologetics. And then when we're not sending those out, we're sending out 10,000 a day for fundraiser emails in Florida. And but we'll set up a second server specifically for the church outreach next year, and so we can dedicate another 10,000 a day going out in the surrounding area, inviting people to the next service the following week. And we'll change it. I'm thinking about putting the short videos on there, the 30, 40-second videos, and my outlines, sermon outlines, and notes for my each message for the week ahead.
Yeah.
So, and I was
that's
talking
great.
I was talking to a pastor and friend of mine in the Bronx this afternoon, and Dr. Grassi. I said, "Hey, what do you think about this, Joel?" I said, maybe if I'm sending them notes, they will, one of the things when you visit a church, I was telling them, I said, don't you think there's a high level of stress when people come to a church because they don't know what to expect? So the more you can let them know what to expect, the easier it will be for them, and more comfortable and he agreed. He said that there is definitely some truth to that people there's a stress factor. So we can do all of that. We can send videos, we can send, sermon notes out and do everything we can. We can put little video ads out. People can pick them up on their email. And once we buy the emails, we own them. Then it only costs me $50 a month or so to run these 10,000 emails a day.
So how much does that cost? Did you say up front?
Well, I did the math on 4 towns around me: Daytona, Port Orange, New Smyrna Beach, and Edgewater. It's about 153,000 emails for about $1,400.
Okay. It's very
But that's a good
effective.
investment. Once you
Yeah.
once you buy them, you own them. You can keep dripping on people and keep in front of them. And
Yeah,
you're talking 70,000 emails a week promoting the following week's service.
that is crazy. I love it. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I-
So this is it. So like I said, I called this this Episcopal minister Monday night. He called me back. We had a great conversation, and just a fascinating guy. He did his PhD in Scotland, and he's kind of a evangelical reformed. I mean, it's all mixed up. It's like, I don't know, kind of like Stone Soup or something in there. It's just a little bit of everything in there. Reformed, evangelical. He went to a Catholic seminary in the States and in Scotland, and now he's an Episcopalian that's evangelical reformed.
Wow.
But we got along great. I got along, and he's a surfer. He's a surfer preacher.
No
He goes
way.
out. He says the best surfing on the East Coast is New Smyrna Beach because of the waves. The best on the East Coast, the whole East Coast. So, so we got talking, and he says, "Hey, well, send me your doctoral statement," and he'll present it to some people. I'm going to go visit their church Sunday morning, and the Episcopalians do one thing right. They have their church, they have their fellowship coffee after the service, not before. So
Okay, gotcha.
they're no dummies. Yeah, they're no dummies. So
It's hilarious.
I grew up Episcopal. My dad was a priest, but then I got saved, and then I realized that wasn't the place for me to be. But nonetheless, just I got along good with him, and we talked. He says, "Hey, we'll discuss it with other people in the church, and you can come visit us, and we'll talk about what kind of money you can afford." He used that word. We'll find out what you can afford. So he's already a very accommodating sentiment already, which is music to my ears,
Yeah.
So, I have a lot of things already in store. I have 100 hymnals. I have pew Bibles. I have a plexiglass pulpit. I have cameras, tripods and cameras. What else? I have, I have the tax exemption from the IRS. I've been registered with the state of Florida as long as I've been in the state. It's just waiting for the right opportunity. I have domains. I have 2 domains for the church, constitutionbaptist.com and .org. We just have to put a website up, and we're,
Wow.
get a building, and we're in process,
You're a master planner. You got it.
Well-
together. A lot of people don't have that anywhere near that. That's
Well,
excellent.
we'll just see what the Lord does. If Lord willing, I mean, I tell people once we get our emails going, we'll be evangelizing.
That's right. That's right.
So-
It doesn't matter how. They didn't have email back
Now-
then.
The other thing that the county does for people, they post all the new move-in addresses and names, and I think phone numbers on their website. So you can go to their website and you can download every month in by zip code in about 4 or 5 town area. There's about 270 new move-ins every month, and you can download it to Excel spreadsheet. You can clean it up, take out the extra. They give you way too much data, so you clean a lot of the columns out, squeeze it, condense it, save it to your computer, print it off, and go visit the new move-ins and welcome folks to town and invite them to church. So almost
man,
300, almost 300 every month.
Wow. That's a high rate. Yeah.
So I think between those things, and if we get this building, it's right next to the high school. I gotta believe that's a very strategic, spot.
Right. Wow.
I'll send you a link to this. You can see the
Sure,
picture
yeah.
of this building on MapQuest. I'll send it to you. I've sent it to several people already. So we'll just see what happens, and then I'm going to Connecticut in October 11th. I'm flying to Connecticut the 12th. Me and some buddies, we're going to a Yale Dartmouth game in New Haven, Connecticut, and then I'm gonna hang out there for 8 days. Hopefully, do some preaching, promote the Bible conference on the 18th through the 20th of October. I'm preaching with Dr. Joel Grassi in the Bronx. We're doing we're calling it Bible Conference in the Bronx. He'll be presenting on the Tyndale Bible. We're heading into the 500-year anniversary of the Tyndale Bible, and then of course I'll be speaking this year. I'll be speaking on 4 or 5 major doctrines of the Anabaptists. Next year, Lord willing, I'll go back and present. We'll profile 4 or 5 different of the major Anabaptist leaders, and of course that will be the big hurrah. That's the 500-year anniversary for both the beginning of the Anabaptist and the Tyndale Bible next year, 2025. 1525 to 2025. So pretty excited. And I'm excited about that because I never get out of here. I never go anywhere since I started this PhD. I'm like complete cabin fever, dying here. Not that I'm lacking for anything, but I'm dying. The last time I got out of here was October. I went to my homecoming at my alma mater, Pensacola Christian College, for a weekend.
I like Pensacola.
Yeah.
I like
So
it. My wife was there too with me on a trip. Yeah, we liked it.
You did? You liked it? It's too cold though, brother. You don't want to move there.
Oh, tell me, but it was warmer than Ohio.
It is absolutely warmer than Ohio. But let me tell you, I went to college there. We've had snow there. Ain't fun. Okay. When it gets cold in Pensacola, the wind cuts through you.
It's warmer in Virginia Beach at that same time because we were down there in the wintertime.
Oh, is that right?
And it was like in the 30s. I'm like, what? But it did warm up to like set to 70s closer to the weekend. It is better than Ohio by far. I'd rather be there than Ohio, but I don't think
that would be true. That would be true. I'd have to agree with that.
It was pretty cool. But anything else we're going to talk about? I have something going on at 7. If you don't.
Oh no, I'm good. I'm good. The only thing I would say is with regard to the movie is I think the elements of that are dealing with the sovereignty of God, of life, good and evil and suffering. God has a reason for suffering. Nobody likes it. Pain is international. Nobody likes it. Right. Nobody likes it. There isn't anyone likes it says they like it. They're crazy.
I agree.
But suffering is very hard for Christians in the West to understand. People in other parts of the world know how to suffer. We haven't learned how to suffer. We don't understand it. Okay, but God allows us to suffer because it shows us the mighty hand of God.
Right.
It shows
Wow.
us the sovereignty of God. And it's suffering is for God's glory ultimately. That's what it's for. But that's not the mindset of Christianity in the West. We have a
Right.
health and wealth mentality in the West, even if we're not in a health and wealth church.
That's right.
That's kind of what we think. If we're healthy and wealthy, we must be blessed and we must be doing something. We must be doing everything right. But what happens when you start suffering? And does that mean you're not in the will of God? Does that mean I wasn't in the will of God when I went up to Danvers? I knew one person in town and had $1,000 to my name to start a church and live, and started preaching. And I got in a fire. Does that mean I wasn't in God's will there?
Right. I gotcha. A lot of people don't know that story yet. I know you talked about it, but it's very, very sobering, And thank God you survived that fire and got out of it.
I thank God I've survived. And but I'll let you run. And I
Hey, before
appreciate
you go,
yes, sir.
yeah, no, you're the sir, doctor. So you're gonna, okay, yeah, hopefully, yeah. If you want to put that on your LinkedIn page or anywhere else, that'd be appreciated.
I will. That's about the only place I have.
Huh?
That's the only place I have to put it is LinkedIn. It's really the only social media I have. I mean,
Okay.
I have a YouTube page, but I don't think I can really push
So
it out there. But
you have the address. You have I sent you the website, and
I can pull it off. I can pull it off the text that you sent me, and I'll post it right now on my LinkedIn page as soon as we get off the call.
You know what, Dr. Knight, thank you so much. And I appreciate you coming on. And the way you manage things, you've always been amazing. You do these big, giant things all the time. I think that's great. So that's totally amazing to me. Totally amazing. But
I covet your prayers and your viewers and your friends. I covet your prayers and pray that we just pray that we can upset the devil.
Right.
Say we
pray that you get 100%.
Huh?
Pray that you get 100%.
Yes, exactly.
Me too.
Well, you want me to close in prayer?
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay. Dear Lord, we do thank you for Kevin White for him putting this podcast on. I pray you would continue to bless he and his viewers. And I pray, Lord, that something that may have been said tonight may benefit somebody that's listening in or watching in, either tonight or in the future, Lord. And I pray that you would just continue to do a work in people's hearts and lives through this podcast, and you would continue to draw people to yourself and heal. I'm sure there's a lot of healing that takes place through a lot of these conversations, and that you would just continue to do a work in people's hearts and lives. And I pray you would just continue to bless in a great way, and we'll be careful. Thank you for these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So,
thank you, Pastor
right.
Knight. Hey, we got 2 hearts. Do we want to give you a heart?
What's that?
You got 2 hearts here.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
You have a great day and week. Okay.
Okay. All right. You too. Lord bless you.
All right. You too. Thank you.
Bye.
And that will do it. See ya. Bye. So that'll do it. That's a show for tonight. Got other places to go. Dr. Knight is fantastic. He's wonderful. So he's a very accomplished gentleman, and yes, and a good friend. And we talk a lot outside of here. But anyway, it's time for us to end the show. God bless America. God bless the military. And God protect us from here on out. Thank you. Good night.